Hey, happy Sunday, y'all. Happy daylight savings time. If you don't know, you had to push your clocks ahead an hour, which most people we lose an hour, but I like it because it means here in the Northeast that warmer temperatures are coming. So I'm all about warmer temperatures. If you follow me, as much as I complain about the Northeast everlasting winters, I'm always about warm temperatures. I was definitely born on the wrong part of the country here in the US. But anyway, Ed Carbajal here for MMAnews.com. It is March 14th, and we are coming to you after UFC Vegas 21, another event at the Apex that was headlined Belal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards. One of those cards, again, that was kind of like not really trending to be on the radar, but if you follow the sport long enough and you watch MMA long enough, then you know that means it's going to be a pretty entertaining card. And this card, so far, most of it, not for nothing. I know we're gonna get to the stuff that stood out for it, the knee and the down knee and the eye poke and all that stuff. But overall, I mean, when you get a couple of knockouts the way we got the likes of Dan Ige, I'm trying to think of who else. We're going to go through the card in a minute over at MMAnews.com. But speaking MMAnews.com, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, click the bell notification at the MMAnews.com YouTube channel, where this video and all the other Sunday submissions, along with our interviews, live. We actually had interviews with Leon Edwards and Eric Anders for the card that happened last night. I know I plugged those last week, and then we have one with Sean Brady talking about his win after UFC 259. I actually still need to watch that one myself. So hopefully Lynch gets into that whole one-arm guillotine setup that he uses for control and stuff like that. Because as an old man grappler, I like getting that information. Again, full results last night are up at MMAnews.com. And if you like what I do here and want to follow everything else that I do at other outlets, you can follow me on Twitter at Carbazal. When Twitter Spaces launches, I'll probably be doing some fight night stuff. So if you want to jump in that audio, make sure you're giving me a follow for that. All right, let's get into it. UFC Vegas 21 results. Again, so I forget when the last bad eye poke happened on an event, but I just want to get the results up so you guys can follow along with me. There's one of these Sunday submissions I went through in detail about with the whole thing with there's because already here we are Sunday morning, folks are talking about the UFC needs to change their gloves. You got gloves like this that kind of go over the knuckle. I'm not going to put it on. You can check that video. That's like probably I have to look at the number. Maybe the producer over at MMAnews.com that handles this video when I send it to him can backlink it for you so you can check that out. But we went over the whole thing about using gloves and alternative gloves for events. And of course, I'm talking about the main event. Since that seems to be the most trending topic of the day, the second round accidental eye poke for Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad. It's a no contest because of what happened. Leon Edwards is calling for a title shot, even though he hasn't fought in 2 years. Not his fault. And then, Muhammad, who took the fight on short notice, is on the end of this with his eye messed up, and what have you. They've modified the rules. For those that don't know, I mean the eye pokes in combat sports, they've definitely been around, but you have to. I mean, I'm sure there's some statistician out there. There used to be guys. I think maybe Cage Side Press did it. You have to look. You have to look at how often they happen all across the sport, and I'm sure someone will correct me. Actually, please do correct me. Drop it in the comments or whatever. It seems like they're most prevalent in the UFC. And I know Rogan in the past is talking about, the gloves need to change. The gloves, I feel like, have been the same since they started regulating the sport, which they barely come over the first four knuckles. The video, I don't know where I put my other glove, but the video I had that's closest to those, but the video that I did about the last time this happened, that it was a big deal. You can check it there. And then if you look at so Rogan is all for the gloves that Pride Fighting Championships used to use, which is the one Ryzen use now. I mean, they go further enough that even when your hand is out, it curves the hand, so it's harder to make that rigid, And it often happens with someone trying to paw at the lead hand or pull down the guard so they can get a jab over and do their combination underneath. There's or hook them or initiate a grapple or a clinch. It's the whole point of making these gloves. It's more to protect the fighter's hands than protecting the guy getting hit, obviously, because the point is to cause some damage to win the fight. Plus, you could look, and you could go further down the road if you look into like Cleveland Clinic's research and stuff like that. You talk about boxing gloves. As much as it helps you for training, there is what's the word that I'm looking for? I throw it around in conversation all the time and I can't think of it, but the energy from the weighted glove is actually more damaging than someone versus bare knuckle boxing, right? Where it seems like without a glove at all, you're looking at bare knuckle boxing without a glove at all. Not only is a fighter looking to keep their fist clenched more tightly to protect it from breaking, there's less likelihood of a poke happening. Of course, the rule sets are different. I'm digressing, but one of the popular things I'm seeing is people are bringing up all the different gloves, and there's a point to that. Maybe the UFC finally does really need to look at glove design. It's been the same for so long. You're doing uniforms, you're doing all these, change the rules a few times. Maybe it's time to look at glove design and say, hey, okay. You bought Pride, right? So it just like you bought Strikeforce. So why not? Maybe make them black. They don't have to be the blue gloves. Make them black with the UFC logo on them, but use the same design. Bellator, for example, they evolved their gloves. Everlast made a design where there's something extra design in the glove that does protect the fighter's hand, but it also does the natural curve where you don't have to worry about the eye pokes, and you don't see them that much again in Bellator. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, by all means, drop it in the comments. That's the only way we learn anything is if you get corrected, right? So it's a damn shame that happened, especially for a guy like Muhammad, who's a gamer. If you're not following him on social media, he's actually pretty fun guy to follow on social media. And then there's a really good shot of the eye poke. I'll share that in a minute. Maybe I should share it now. I can't share the two images at once. While I have the results up, but let's go through the card, and then we'll go back to that, right? I'm trying to see how many knockouts did we have? TKOs, KOs. We had Ryan Spahn over Serkinov, Tucker's over Dan Ige over Tucker. Another one. So this is what I'm talking about. When these cards that don't get a lot of love, you wind up saying, "God damn it, why did I miss that?" After the fact. The Eric Anders and Darren Stewart. That's the other thing. That was the other hot topic of the night because it was ruled it was an illegal knee to a downed opponent. Same rules as we had at 259. And it's funny because it's not funny, but it's an odd coincidence. For as long as after UFC 259, the most trending topic or just discuss Aljamain Sterling had to go on a media tour of his own. He went in full detail on his own YouTube channel, plus did a bunch of interviews with almost everybody, where he discussed the whole his perspective from the down knee and stuff like that. And then the following event after that in the same location, we have another down knee that's that ends a fight, But the difference being is this one gets called a no contest, whereas Peter Young got disqualified. So people now you got people pulling out the rule books and arguing back and forth, including the commentary team last night about how things went. And I want to bring up. I retweeted it. I just want to bring up the quote from ESPN. Put it up. I'm going to bring up that image of the eye poke too, because oof, that's pretty bad. Where is it? Mark Ratner. Here we go. Per ESPN and MMA put this up last night when the knee happened. Per an update from UFC Senior Vice President of Regulatory Affairs, Mark Ratner, the no decision in the Anders Stewart fight was due to the bout not going 2 full rounds and because the blow was deemed not intentional. The unintentional side is obvious when if you're going to compare the 259 Jan Sterling knee to this knee with Anders and Stewart, but because it was so obvious that it was intentional, because he not only did Jan like hesitate and look confused before he threw it. He had his corner saying to throw it and what have you. So the thing is, I mean, and then you have, again, it's almost repeat from last week. People complaining. You got the armchair regulatory affairs folks, but it's an accident. These things are accident. It looks like the eye poke, just like the 2 knees. It's an accident. For us sitting here at home watching the fights, the guys that are in there, they don't have a lot of time to weigh out, remember the rule book. I know that they have a rule meetings. You should keep it in mind. And yeah, again, siding with Dominic Cruz. I mean, when you're trying to be championship level, you got to set the example by trying to be conscious of that as a competitor, as a professional athlete. I agree with all of that. But again, then there's the other side of the coin where, it's a fight. You're 2 guys trying to hurt each other. There's probably already pains existing from the damage done. Things can be confused. So it's an accident. I mean, we got to let it go as it stands. That's why they have a VP of Regulatory Affairs. That's why they have a commission. Do the rules need to be reexamined? Because one thing that we saw, maybe not as popular, probably the older school cats caught it and sort of agree with it. People are calling for it. Again, it's funny because for both incidences, Pride Fighting Championships is brought up. People bring up Pride rules. Back in Pride, you were allowed to knee a downed opponent. For a little while, you weren't. But then they were just like, it's because of stuff like this, it was too, why go through the mess of discussing it and going back and forth, and you have all these little social media battles going. Just let the knees go. No, if the knees are allowed, then there's no discussion. You know what I mean? And that's how Pride handled it. And then you have old school guys calling for it to be a thing like that. But then, on the flip side, there's fighter safety, but you never know. Again, I don't understand where these commissions and stuff, if you're so concerned about fighter safety in a sport where the objective is to damage one opponent, is to damaging another, the line is super thin. There's research out there both for and again. We just talked about the gloves. So why isn't all boxing just bare knuckle? If it looks uglier. But for brain health, there's science out there that says, or there's studies out there, I should say, that say, no gloves is safer than with gloves, right? So the same can be said for the downed opponent rule with the knees and soccer kicks and stuff like that. One of the other arguments is there. I remember one of the comparisons. So if you look at they don't allow elbows, like in some promotion, even the PFL doesn't, because they do a tournament format. It makes sense not to allow elbows because having a cut and the time that needs to heal could put someone out for the rest of the season if they're not able to compete. So that's why they don't allow elbows. But the Pride didn't allow elbows, but they allowed the knees and the soccer kicks. If you really want to see a whole thing about how they went back and forth with the knees, check out the Smashing Machine documentary about Mark Kerr. There's actually an incident like that where where the knee, it was Mark Kerr versus Igor Vovchanchyn, if I'm not mistaken. And during one of they changed the rules where the knees are allowed, where the knees were allowed, then they weren't allowed, and there's confusion about it. And Mark Kerr takes a loss because of that. He's on all four and he takes a knee, and it caused a problem. That might be why they let the knees come back, if that incident, because I think that was in the Pride Grand Prix 2000. What's that? 2003. Um, people can folks that watch us can drop it in the comments if you want to correct the date or whatever, because I'm going off the top of my head. But again, regardless of when it happened, that's a really good example of how far back this downed opponent, the pros and cons for knee and stuff like that. But then, again, you think about brain health. Like the thing with the elbows brings me back again to the Randy Couture, Vitor Belfort. He lost his title over the technicality over a cut from an elbow or from a glove, or I forget what it was from. But that's one of the reasons they didn't allow elbows, because it just it's one of those things where, I mean, do you have the argument, is this proper technique or a technicality? The whole point of this type of combat sport is to show who the better fighter is and who has the better tools, and elbows is many a martial arts discipline tool to win a fight. So we can go on and on to probably do a whole podcast about that. We probably will go on and on about that if on my podcast when I go do it on Tuesday night. But it just begs the question again, as far as the gloves and the arguing about the rules. I mean, the rules have changed since the unified rules were made. I mean, we were kind of talking about that, me and my old podcast co-host for Combat Hour, long time I meant to say, we went back and forth about that, and because of how the rules, first you had the unified rules and then they modify those rules and then they vary by state. There should be something across the board. That's one of the arguments that Chael Sonnen says about why, grappling, submission only grappling, it's entertaining for those that understand the nuances of the ground game and stuff like that. But the one of the things that hold it back is the varied rule sets. You have like Fight to Win does advantage and submissions. Obviously, there's no points, but the advantage based on the judging criteria. Then you have the EBI rules, which is what Chael Sonnen used as submission underground. Those seem to lend more towards a more broader way to popularize it, but these confusing rules can be what holds back a sport. And the UFC has done a lot, obviously, in their 27 years to get to where they are, to have something like this. I mean, to look at it again, maybe they don't want to, because they are in a pretty good place right now as far as their growth. I mean, they have video games and they're on ESPN, so it is what it is. But anyway, back to the results. Angela Hill defeated Ashley Yoder by unanimous decision. She was at the top of the prelims. I mean, I was happy for Angela Hill to win because I feel like she's gotten the short end of the stick in a couple of decisions in some places where in some fights that she probably might have deserved the win, right? So that's good for her. I mean, she needed that. Maybe it's a sign of things to better judging criteria based on what happened the week before with all the 10-8 rounds. I know that was kind of like at 259 there was seemed to be a overabundance of 10-8 rounds given out. So maybe it depends on, again, it is a question of how educated your judges and officials are. But that's going to be a long uphill battle with the sport. But the triangle choke that Rania did on Ray Rodriguez, I saw some folks were looking at the details, and me as a submission guy, one of the things I like about seeing these arm triangles now, back in the day, the arm triangle had to be secured. If you got the head and the arm in, and you're in again, you're getting your choke. You had to be on one side of the person's body to do it. Chael Sonnen pulled it off back in the day. I forget against who, but he did it from on top of the guy. And if you want a really clear example of how you really don't need to be side to side, Renzo Gracie, excuse me, I think it's in one of his Gawler video promos where he talks about placing compressing all the space versus doing the old school, side to side arm triangle and then crossing over, where you'll get the choke anyway, even if they do the answering the phone defense. Just based on, rather than, because when Renzo explains it, he talks about how a lot of guys will sprawl out to do that head and arm triangle side by side, and you're actually giving the guy space to do the escape that arm triangle answering the phone defense is for. So you'll see that's the Raniya submission is a really good example of what Renzo Gracie was talking about, where it's better as long as you get this part of your hand against the carotid on the far side and their arm is in between, you can really just tighten up all that space and just close it all up and squeeze and get a nice clean blood choke. So that's something nice to see as MMA evolves. What else did we get there? I'm trying to see. And then Jinh Yu Frey, I was happy to see her pick up a win because I know she had a rough entry into the UFC. She picks up a unanimous decision win. Sometimes I think that was her third fight, so third time's a charm, right? We could say that. The thing about so let's go back to. Let me take this down because I want to show you that image of the. Dana White actually shared it. The image of the eye poke, which was really bad. Eye poke so you can see. And then Bilal's all right. He says, the damage is not too bad, thankfully. Well, ESPN has 2 shots, so let's use that one. Here we go. Let's share this. Sorry. This I'm using StreamYard, and it only lets you share one tab at a time. So look at that. So you can see here with the eye poke, it's at first, when I first saw it last night, I thought it was the thumb going in, and I'm like, well, how did that cause a cut on the lower eyelid? That would make it hard to see, but you can see right there, it's kind of the index finger nasty digging in and flicking out. Oh, it's almost like he fish hooked his eye. So, it's I don't know if we'd have to check if Dana White did any interviews. I know he was there because he was putting stuff on Instagram, but I am wondering if anyone asked him, like, is it time to look at the gloves again? I mean, and who knows if that fixes it? Because then again, when you look at, sometimes it needs to be fixed in training too. If you look at the way folks parry and feint, and again, there are techniques that guys like to use where they hook the guard of the, in striking terms, you hook the guard to get behind so you can get a jab in. Oh, I just hit myself in the face. Get the jab in and go 1-2, right? So it's again, it's easy to fix when you're looking, from the seat of your couch, drinking your beer and eating your chips and shit. But it's harder to do when you're looking at something that's going to translate across, multiple divisions at this level in this sport. And even the rules that did change, what is it? You're not allowed to do this. You can't have your hand out like this. It's got to be this way or closed fist. So if you're doing this, a la John Jones, who's very popular for saying that he pokes people in the eyes, but then it's hard to control. You're obviously like this, it's hard to control, especially if you look at the way the gloves are in that picture. You see the amount of tape. The whole point of taping, I mean, they are trying to protect their hands too. So it's almost maybe it's subconsciously they can't even think that deep into what they're doing with their hands when you're trying to win a fight again, and someone's trying to hurt you. So it is an accident, and I think as fans, folks watching this sport, you need to kind of just be objective and pull yourself out of it. And it is what it is, as Max Holloway says. That's how the cards fell for Muhammad and Edwards last night. Now, as far as talking, so I mean, let's look at the fight though. I mean, consensus seems to be that Edwards was looking good. I mean, if you got the time off that he had, but wanting to fight, meaning he just because he didn't fight doesn't mean he wasn't training and staying active. I think we saw that with the sharpness of his movement and stuff, the way the first round went. Muhammad, who was coming off of a fight, another weight cut and stuff like that, maybe did not look as good in that first round, but he tweeted after the fact as he apologized to fans and stuff like that for what happened, not being able to continue. You got to, not for nothing, shout out again to Belal Muhammad for just having the heart to think like that. Like, you got nothing to apologize for, dude. You got poked in the eye. You're fighting, what was it, like a week and a half after or I forget how short notice it was. Nothing to apologize for. I mean, if anything, anybody giving you shit about it should be apologizing to, because you're the one, you're out there. Look at there, you damn near lost your eye, and for the spectacle and the entertainment for a sport that folks are giving you. So anyone giving you shit about it, Belal, F them. Fuck them. I already said shit, so sorry for whoever edits this when I send it to MMAnews.com, but sometimes you got to keep it real. But yeah. It sucks because now these guys are going after each other because Edwards is calling for a title shot. Yeah, okay, he looked good or whatever, but maybe the eye poke accidental. It's still not. It's not just like Sterling didn't want to win by getting kneed in the head illegally. I'm sure you don't want to win this way. You know what I mean? I mean, no contest. Nobody won officially, but to call for a title shot in a weird situation like that, maybe you should pump your brakes a little bit. That's just my opinion. And again, sure, yeah, I like Belal Muhammad, but I was impressed with Leon Edwards too. Maybe not a title shot, dude. I mean, you've been sitting on the shelf for 2 years, staying ready, but on the shelf competition wise, as far as with COVID and all the stuff happening, you couldn't get a fight book, but you're here. Maybe while you're here, I don't know how long they're letting you stay, because I know he had a the COVID situation logistically was hard for him to get something going, period. But maybe get another fight or two in before you start doing that. But it's the nature of the business too, right? You got to market yourself. If you're not marketing yourself, I'm trying to be as objective as possible. I don't like to be, again, when you look at what these guys drop and sacrifice to do what they do, you have to pump your own brakes a little bit before you start trying to shit on anybody. That's pretty much the point of what I'm saying, especially with the 2 knees in a row. I mean, at the end of the day, and I know Natan Levy, who's a newly signed with the UFC, he's a big advocate of, yes, you can be impressed with things that happen or whatever, but at the end of the day, you should be concerned with the health of both athletes, no matter who you want to win or who you got your money on, because at the end of the day, especially when you're looking, it is mixed martial arts. There's a certain code, respect, and discipline that comes with it, and you want to make sure that does extend to the sport. Being the just bleed guy is nice, but you don't want to be that guy when it comes to a fighter potentially losing an eye or having issues with their brain health issues later in life. So I think we'll leave it at that. Again, thank you again for following along. If you like all the stuff I do and want to read the articles that I write at MMAnews.com, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Carbazel. Make sure you check out MMAnews.com for all your MMA news. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel for MMAnews.com. We got Bellator stuff on there too. I put up the transfer. I did James Lynch and I did the write up for Emmanuel Sanchez interview, who's fighting Patricio Pitbull again. April when Bellator 255. I think it's April 9th. You got to check the article for that. But yeah, make sure you check out all the stuff we got going on there. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope daylight savings time didn't screw you up too bad. And that's it for me for this Sunday submission. I'll see you next Sunday. I'm tapping out. Peace. Catch you next week.